Imagine carrying a hidden map within you, one that leads not to a destination outside, but to the deepest parts of yourself. A map that reveals not what's broken or flawed, but what is waiting to be discovered, embraced, and transformed. What if the struggles, the fears, and the shadows you've long tried to ignore are not signs of failure, but gateways to your true wholeness? Carl Jung's psychology offers a revolutionary perspective that challenges the idea of being broken and instead shows us a path toward profound healing and integration. This is a journey inward where the mysteries of the unconscious come alive, guiding you toward the fullness of who you really are. Most of us go through life feeling like something is wrong deep inside. Maybe we carry shame, anxiety, or a quiet sense of failure that follows us everywhere. We try to fix ourselves through self-help books, therapy, or just pretending to be okay, but the feeling doesn't go away. What if the problem isn't that you're broken, but that you don't fully know yourself? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, believed that wholeness is not about perfection. It's about integration. According to Jung, you are not a fragmented, hopeless mess in need of fixing. Instead, you're a whole, complex being who hasn't yet discovered all the parts of yourself. You're not broken. You're just unaware of your full inner world. Jung's work begins with a radical idea. The human mind is not fully conscious. In fact, the conscious part, what you think, feel, and are aware of daily, is only a small fraction of who you truly are. Beneath it lies the unconscious, a vast space filled with forgotten memories, instincts, emotions, fears, and unlived potential. It's like an iceberg where only the tip is visible above the surface, but the real mass is hidden below. The journey to healing, according to Jung, is not about suppressing your flaws or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about turning inward and becoming aware of what lies beneath the surface. It's about meeting the parts of yourself that you've rejected, ignored, or never even known existed, and learning to accept them. You might wonder why we become disconnected from ourselves in the first place. As children, we quickly learn what is acceptable and what isn't, what parts of us receive love and what parts are criticized or punished. To survive, we hide the unacceptable parts of ourselves. This could be anger, creativity, sensitivity, ambition, or even vulnerability. We lock them away in the unconscious and try to live without them, but they don't disappear. They wait, and eventually they begin to speak, not with words, but through anxiety, depression, conflict, or even physical illness. Jung called this process the return of the repressed. He believed that every symptom, every uncomfortable emotion, is actually a message from the unconscious. It's not there to harm you. It's trying to wake you up. Your suffering is not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that something within you wants to be heard, integrated, and healed. Here's the beautiful part. Jung didn't believe we had to be perfect to be whole. In fact, he warned against striving for perfection. It only creates a false self, a mask. What we really need is wholeness. That means including the parts we like and the parts we don't. It means saying yes to all of who we are, not just the polished surface. Think of it this way. A person who ignores their flaws and pretends to be perfect is actually more fragile than someone who knows their darkness and learns to live with it. Jung believed that by exploring our inner world, our dreams, fears, desires, and patterns, we can uncover hidden strengths and transform our pain into power. This journey isn't easy. It requires courage. It means facing parts of ourselves that are painful, embarrassing, or unfamiliar. But it's the only path to true freedom, because when we stop running from who we are, we stop being afraid of life. We become more grounded, more compassionate, and more authentic. This is the heart of Jung's message. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a mystery to be explored. Your life is not a series of mistakes. but a meaningful path unfolding from the inside out. Everything you've been through, your struggles, your fears, your longing, is part of a deeper story. And when you begin to listen to that story, everything changes. So if you've ever felt like you're too much or not enough, if you've ever felt lost, numb, or broken, know this: you're not alone. You're not defective. You are a whole person who has yet to meet all of yourself. And that meeting could be the beginning of a new kind of life, one rooted not in fear or perfection, but in understanding and wholeness. That's what Carl Jung offers us. Not a quick fix, but a lifelong path toward becoming who we were always meant to be. To understand Carl Jung's psychology and how it can lead us to wholeness, we must first understand the man himself. Not just as a historical figure, but as a human being who faced his own inner darkness and transformation. Carl Gustav Jung was born in 1875 in Switzerland. From an early age, he was deeply introspective, curious about dreams, spirits, and the unseen forces of the mind. He didn't feel quite like other children. While others played outside, Jung was drawn to his own thoughts, fascinated by the mystery of existence. This sensitivity would shape his entire life. Jung studied medicine and later psychiatry, eventually working at the Burghölzli Psychiatric Hospital in Zurich, where he became a rising star. It was here that he developed a close professional relationship with the already famous Sigmund Freud. At first, Freud saw Jung as his intellectual heir. They worked closely for years, exchanging over 300 letters discussing dreams, the unconscious, and the structure of the psyche. But their relationship didn't last. Jung couldn't accept Freud's insistence that human behavior was driven almost entirely by sexual urges and repressed desires. Jung believed the human psyche was far more complex and spiritual. He saw it not just as a bundle of instincts, but as a living, evolving system with a deep purpose: to grow, to heal, to become whole. This disagreement led to a painful split in 1913, both professionally and personally. Jung was devastated. What followed was the most important period of Jung's life, not in the outer world, but inside himself. He began what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, a deeply emotional and visionary journey. Jung explored his own dreams, fantasies, and inner images in a process that lasted several years. He documented this in a private journal that later became known as the Red Book, an astonishing collection of paintings, dialogues, and insights that formed the foundation of his later work. During this time, Jung wasn't just theorizing, he was living his ideas. He wasn't afraid to go into the depths of his own psyche, and he came back with something extraordinary: a new map of the human soul. He discovered that our minds contain far more than we realize, not only personal memories and traumas, but also shared universal structures he called the collective unconscious. Within this collective unconscious, he found patterns, symbols, and energies that shape human life across all cultures. These were the archetypes, like the hero, the shadow, the mother, the wise old man. We'll explore those more later, but for now, just know that Jung was opening a doorway into something vast and timeless. Jung also introduced the idea of individuation, the process of becoming your true self, by integrating the conscious and unconscious parts of the psyche. Unlike Freud, who wanted to help people manage their symptoms, Jung wanted something deeper. He wanted to help people transform. He was also one of the first to take dreams seriously, not just as random mental noise, but as powerful messages from the unconscious. He believed that dreams weren't meaningless. They were guidance from the deepest part of ourselves, helping us find balance and healing. Carl Jung's influence didn't stop at psychology. His ideas inspired artists, poets, filmmakers, spiritual seekers, and even scientists. Concepts like introversion and extroversion, the shadow self, synchronicity, and archetypes all came from Jung. His work bridges science, spirituality, and philosophy. He didn't offer simple answers. He asked the deepest questions. But perhaps what makes Jung so unique is that he walked the path himself. He didn't just study the human mind. He explored his own soul with courage and honesty. He faced madness, isolation, and the unknown, not as a victim, but as a seeker. Jung showed us that real healing doesn't come from avoiding our darkness, but from engaging with it. He saw every individual as a universe of possibility, full of mystery, contradiction, and potential. His message was radical and compassionate. You are not just your wounds, your past, or your failures. You are a living process, and that process, if followed with awareness, leads to wholeness. Carl Jung died in 1961, but his legacy lives on, not just in textbooks, but in every person who dares to look within and ask, who am I really? When we study Jung, we're not just learning about psychology. We're meeting a guide who offers us a map, not to perfection, but to ourselves. Have you ever reacted to something in a way that surprised even you? Maybe you snapped at someone for no clear reason, felt intense fear out of nowhere, or made a decision that didn't make logical sense, but somehow felt right. According to Carl Jung, this is not random. These are signals from a part of your mind that's hidden from everyday awareness. He called it the unconscious. Jung believed that the human mind is divided into two realms, the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious mind is what you're using right now. It includes your thoughts, intentions, plans, and the identity you know, your I, or ego. It's the part of you that gets up in the morning, checks your phone, solves problems, and makes decisions. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the conscious lies the unconscious, a deep, vast, and powerful part of your psyche that stores forgotten memories, buried emotions, unexpressed desires, instincts, dreams, symbols, and even parts of yourself you don't know exist. Jung saw the unconscious not as something negative or dangerous, but as a living, creative force. It's the part of you that continues working even when you're asleep. It's what dreams in symbols, what feels before you understand, and what shapes your reactions, behaviors, and patterns more than you realize. But here's the catch. The unconscious is unconscious for a reason. We can't see it clearly, and that can create problems. Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. What he meant is that many of the struggles we face, repeated relationship issues, self-sabotage, anxiety, feelings of emptiness, don't come from the outside. They come from unconscious patterns inside us that we haven't yet brought into awareness. Let's take a simple example. Imagine someone who was always told as a child to be strong and never cry. Over time, they learn to repress their emotions. They create a conscious identity that is calm, in control, and unemotional. But deep in the unconscious, all those unexpressed feelings, sadness, vulnerability, anger, don't disappear. They live on. And they might show up later in unexpected ways, in dreams, in outbursts, or in physical illness. This is why Jung placed such a strong emphasis on exploring the unconscious. He believed that healing doesn't come from ignoring or controlling these forces. It comes from understanding them. The unconscious isn't your enemy. It's your greatest teacher. So how do we begin to access the unconscious? Jung suggested a few ways. One is through dreams, which we'll explore in detail later. Dreams are the language of the unconscious. They don't speak in words, but in symbols, stories, and strange images. Another way is through active imagination, where you engage directly with inner images or voices, letting them speak and express themselves creatively. You can also access the unconscious through therapy, art, writing, journaling, or introspection, anything that helps you go beyond logic and connect with the deeper layers of yourself. But Jung also warned, This journey must be taken with care. The unconscious is powerful. If you dive in unprepared, it can be overwhelming. That's why he emphasized balance. You don't abandon your conscious self. You expand it. You create a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. That bridge is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole. In Jung's view, the goal is not to get rid of the unconscious or to make everything fully controlled. That's not possible and not healthy. The goal is to form a relationship with it, to listen to it, to understand its language. When you do, you begin to discover parts of yourself you've ignored or forgotten. You reclaim your inner life. And with that comes greater meaning, clarity, and freedom. Think of it this way. Your conscious mind is like a small boat on the surface of the ocean. The unconscious is the deep water below. You can pretend the water isn't there, but it will still affect your direction. Or you can learn to navigate with awareness by understanding the currents, the tides, and what lies beneath the waves. In Jung's psychology, the unconscious isn't something to be feared. It's something to be explored. It holds the parts of yourself you've lost, the wisdom of your soul, and the potential to become fully, authentically you. When you begin to work with both your conscious and unconscious minds, something beautiful happens. You stop living on autopilot. You start living with purpose. Deep within each of us lies a part we rarely see, and often don't want to. It holds our repressed anger, shame, jealousy, fear, insecurities, and even our hidden strengths. Carl Jung called this part the shadow, not because it's evil or dangerous, but because it lives in the dark, outside of our awareness. The shadow isn't something bad. It's simply everything we've pushed away because we were told it wasn't acceptable. As children, we quickly learned that some parts of us brought love and approval, while others brought rejection. So we hid the parts that weren't safe. Maybe it was our loud voice, our vulnerability, our sensitivity, or even our ambition. Over time, we forget they even exist. They slip into the unconscious, forming the shadow. But just because we deny the shadow doesn't mean it goes away. In fact, the more we repress it, the more power it gains. Jung believed that what we refuse to face within ourselves will eventually show up outside, in our relationships, in the people we criticize, in the things we fear, and in the situations we attract again and again. This is why shadow work is essential. It's not about judging ourselves. It's about reclaiming what we've lost. For example, you might think of yourself as a calm and kind person. That's your conscious identity. But maybe there's a lot of unexpressed anger inside you, anger that leaks out in passive-aggressive comments, sarcasm, or withdrawal. Or maybe you see someone who's confident and bold, and you immediately dislike them. That strong reaction might not be about them. It might be a reflection of a confident, bold part of you that was once shamed or suppressed. This is a classic example of projection, something Jung explored deeply, and we'll get to that next. The shadow also contains positive traits. Jung was clear on this. It's not just about dark or negative emotions. Sometimes the parts of ourselves we repress are beautiful, our creativity, passion, intuition, or courage. These were pushed away because we feared being judged, envied, or punished. But they're still inside, waiting to be seen, honored, and lived. So how do we begin to work with the shadow? The first step is honesty. Pay attention to what triggers you in others. What traits irritate, frustrate, or anger you? Often those are reflections of your own denied qualities. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This isn't easy to accept, but it's powerful. Next, look at your recurring emotional patterns. Do you often feel invisible, unworthy, rejected, or overly responsible? These may point to parts of your shadow that are asking to be acknowledged. Instead of trying to fix them, try to understand them. Where did they come from? What story do they tell about your past? Journaling, dream work, and therapy are excellent tools for exploring the shadow. So is creative expression, drawing, painting, dancing, or writing from your darker side without judgment. Give your shadow a voice. Let it speak. It doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to be seen and integrated. And this is key. Integration, not elimination. Jung didn't believe we should try to erase the shadow. That only makes it more dangerous. He believed we should bring it into the light of awareness, form a relationship with it, and find its place in the whole of who we are. When we do shadow work, we become more whole. We stop projecting our pain onto others. We take back our energy. We gain emotional maturity, and we become more authentic, no longer pretending to be only the good version of ourselves, but embracing our full humanity. This is not an easy journey. Facing the shadow means confronting uncomfortable truths. It means admitting that we're not always kind, fair, or in control. But it also opens the door to incredible freedom, because the more you own your shadow, the less power it has over you. You stop being ruled by hidden fears and start living with deeper self-awareness. In Jung's view, to be whole, we must face the dark. Not to become darker, but to bring light into the places we've abandoned. The shadow is not your enemy, it's your doorway to truth. When you stop denying your darkness, you begin to discover your true power. Have you ever strongly disliked someone without fully understanding why? Or found yourself deeply drawn to a person who, in hindsight, wasn't good for you? These intense emotional reactions are rarely just about the other person. According to Carl Jung, they often reveal something hidden within us. This process is called projection. Projection is when we unconsciously transfer parts of ourselves onto other people. These can be negative traits we deny, like anger, jealousy, arrogance, or even positive qualities we've lost touch with, such as courage, creativity, or confidence. Jung believed projection is the mind's way of trying to deal with the shadow by placing it outside of us where it feels safer. For example, imagine you meet someone who is extremely arrogant. You immediately feel irritated and judgmental. On the surface, it's easy to say, they're just full of themselves. But if your reaction is very strong, Jung would ask, why does this bother you so much? Is it possible that this arrogance reflects something in you, perhaps your own suppressed desire to be bold, powerful, or unapologetically visible? We often project traits onto others because we haven't accepted those parts in ourselves. We see in them what we can't or won't see in us. Jung once said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. In other words, once you start owning your projections, you begin to see others more clearly and live with more authenticity. But projection isn't always negative. We also project positive qualities onto others. This is especially common in romantic relationships. When we fall in love, we often feel that the other person is magical, perfect, or somehow complete. That feeling can be intoxicating. But Jung warned that it's often a projection of our own unlived potential. Our idealism, tenderness, passion, or creativity cast onto someone else. That's why relationships, especially close ones, are such powerful teachers. They force our unconscious into the open. When the initial glow fades and conflict begins, that's often the shadow revealing itself through projection. Many relationships fall apart at this point, but Jung believed this is where real growth begins, if both people are willing to look inward. So how do we become aware of our projections? The key is to examine your emotional reactions. If someone provokes a reaction that feels larger than the situation, whether that's admiration, disgust, jealousy, or hatred, that's often a sign of projection. Ask yourself, what does this person represent for me? What part of me have I given away to them? Another method is to explore your recurring relationship patterns. Do you always end up feeling abandoned, smothered, disrespected, or invisible? These patterns may point not just to how others treat you, but to how you unconsciously treat yourself and what you're projecting onto others. Jung emphasized that withdrawing projections is an essential part of becoming whole. When we take our projections back, we reclaim the energy we've invested outside ourselves. We begin to see people more clearly, not as perfect saviors or villains, but as real, complex human beings. And we begin to see ourselves with greater honesty and compassion. This doesn't mean you should blame yourself for everything or tolerate harmful behavior. Recognizing projection is about ownership, not self-blame. It's about realizing that your emotional world is shaped by inner forces you may not yet understand, and that the people around you can act as mirrors, reflecting what lies within. Ultimately, projection is not a flaw, it's an opportunity. Each time you catch yourself reacting strongly to someone, ask, "What is this trying to show me about myself?" That question can open doors to deep self-discovery. In Jungian psychology, this kind of inner work is essential. It helps us stop living in illusions about others and about ourselves. And as we slowly take back our projections, we uncover hidden aspects of our psyche, both light and dark, that are waiting to be acknowledged. When we stop projecting, we start connecting, not just with others, but with the wholeness inside ourselves. Within each of us lives a hidden counterpart. If you're biologically male, you carry a feminine psychological element within you. If you're biologically female, you carry a masculine psychological element. Carl Jung named these internal opposites the anima and animus, and he believed that understanding and integrating them is essential for becoming a whole, balanced person. The anima represents the feminine side of a man's unconscious. She might show up in his dreams, emotions, moods, intuitions, or even in the women he feels magnetically drawn to. The animus, on the other hand, is the masculine side of a woman's unconscious. It can appear as inner strength, logical voice, drive, or in fantasies about idealized men. These are not about gender roles or stereotypes. They are symbols, psychological energies that exist in every human being, regardless of gender identity. Why did Jung believe this was so important? Because we're not born whole. We're born with the potential for wholeness, but through social conditioning and personal development, we tend to over-identify with one side of ourselves and repress the other. Society often teaches men to be rational, strong, and emotionally controlled, traits associated with the masculine. Meanwhile, women are often encouraged to be nurturing, intuitive, and emotionally open, traits associated with the feminine. But Jung warned that if we reject or ignore these opposite qualities within ourselves, we become lopsided. We may feel incomplete, restless, or stuck. For a man, ignoring his anima might lead to emotional detachment, difficulty forming deep relationships, or feelings of emptiness. For a woman, repressing the animus could mean struggling with self-expression, inner authority, or confidence. So what happens when we begin to acknowledge these inner figures? For men, connecting with the anima means opening to emotion, empathy, creativity, and intuition. It doesn't make them weaker, it makes them more whole. It allows them to be vulnerable, form deeper relationships, and access a rich inner life. Jung believed the anima often appears in dreams as a female figure, sometimes a lover, sometimes a muse, and sometimes a dark, chaotic force, depending on how integrated or rejected she is. For women, encountering the animus often means strengthening the inner voice of reason, independence, assertiveness, and willpower. The animus can appear in dreams as a wise man, a critic, a guide, or even as a group of male figures. A woman integrating her animus begins to stand more firmly in her truth, express her ideas clearly, and take action with confidence. But this process isn't always comfortable. The anima and animus often emerge through projection first, meaning we fall in love with people who seem to complete us. A man might be captivated by a woman who embodies his inner anima. A woman might be drawn to a man who reflects her animus. But these outer fascinations can be illusions, mirrors of what we've lost touch with inside ourselves. Jung believed the real work begins when we take those projections back, when we stop seeking our emotional or spiritual completion in others and begin cultivating those qualities in our own psyche. This is the process of individuation, of becoming whole. This doesn't mean we stop loving others, but it means we stop depending on them to fill inner voids. We build a conscious relationship with our inner opposite, allowing us to become more balanced, resilient, and authentic. Let's say a man starts listening to his dreams and notices recurring images of water, women, or a feeling of emotional depth. That might be his anima calling out. If he engages with those symbols through journaling, creativity, or introspection, he can begin integrating what's missing in his life. Likewise, if a woman notices she's constantly looking for validation or strength outside of herself, the animus may be urging her to own her inner authority, develop her intellect, or stand more firmly in her voice. When the anima and animus are ignored, they become disruptive. They can make us fall for the wrong people, act out in relationships, or become creatively blocked. But when they're embraced and integrated, they become bridges to the parts of ourselves we most need in order to grow. Jung saw this inner union, the marriage of anima and animus, not just as personal healing, but as a sacred path to psychological wholeness. In myth, it's often symbolized as the union of the king and queen, sun and moon, or yin and yang. When we accept both the masculine and feminine within us, we gain access to the full range of human potential, logic and feeling, action and reflection, strength and softness. And in doing so, we come one step closer to becoming whole. At the heart of Carl Jung's psychology lies a powerful idea. The purpose of life is not to become perfect, but to become whole. This journey toward wholeness is what Jung called individuation. It's the process of becoming your most authentic self by integrating the many layers of your personality, both conscious and unconscious. Individuation is not about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering who you already are at the deepest level, beneath the masks you wear, the roles you play, and the expectations the world has placed on you. It's a return to your original, inner truth. When we're young, we form an identity called the persona to help us fit in. We learn what is rewarded and what is punished, and we shape ourselves accordingly. Maybe you became the responsible one, the funny one, the strong one, or the quiet one. But behind that mask, there are parts of you that were hidden or rejected. The shadow, the anima or animus, your true desires and fears, they all wait in the unconscious, longing to be recognized. The individuation process invites you to turn inward and meet these parts with curiosity, not judgment. You begin to ask, who am I really? What do I want? Not what others expect of me, but what my soul longs for. What have I been running from within myself? Jung described individuation as a kind of psychological alchemy, a transformation of the raw, unconscious material of your psyche into something clear, conscious, and integrated. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a lifelong journey, often sparked by a crisis, a loss, a creative breakthrough, or a deep sense that something inside you needs to change. Dreams play a major role in this journey. Jung believed dreams are messages from the unconscious, guiding us toward what needs attention or healing. Symbols in dreams can point to unresolved conflicts, hidden talents, or unacknowledged fears. Paying attention to them helps you understand what's happening beneath the surface of your waking life. Another vital part of individuation is integrating the shadow. As discussed earlier, the shadow holds everything we deny or disown in ourselves. By acknowledging it, we release the grip of shame, fear, and unconscious patterns. We stop blaming others for our pain and start taking responsibility for our inner world. Individuation also means engaging with your inner opposites, your anima or animus. As you bring these forces into balance, you no longer need to seek completion in other people. You carry more of yourself within you. More emotion, strength, clarity, intuition, and creativity. You become internally sourced rather than externally defined. This doesn't mean you become self-centered or isolated. In fact, Jung believed that true individuation makes you more capable of connection. When you are in touch with your true self, you no longer relate to others through your defenses or wounds. You relate through presence, honesty, and compassion. But individuation is not easy. It often requires facing discomfort, uncertainty, and even grief. The grief of letting go of old identities that once kept you safe. There may be times when you feel lost or disconnected, but these are signs that something deeper is shifting. Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. It is in these challenging moments that your real transformation begins." One of the most profound outcomes of individuation is a sense of inner peace. When you stop pretending to be someone you're not and start honoring your full truth, light and dark, you experience a new kind of freedom. Life feels more meaningful, relationships become richer, and your work becomes an expression of your soul. Individuation is not a selfish path, it's a sacred one. Jung believed that as individuals heal and become whole, they contribute to the healing of society as a whole. A person who has integrated their unconscious becomes a source of wisdom and stability in a chaotic world. So what does it mean to individuate? It means listening to the voice inside that says, "There's more to me than this." It means following the thread of your deepest longing, even when it leads you away from the familiar. It means becoming the person you were always meant to be, not by rejecting your past, but by including all of it in your story. And as you walk this path, you don't become someone else. You become more you. In Carl Jung's psychology, there's a central figure at the core of your psyche. It's not your ego, not your personality, and not the social role you play. Jung called it the self, the totality of who you truly are, both conscious and unconscious, both known and unknown. It is your essence. The goal of Jungian psychology is not just healing or happiness. It is to realize and unite with this deeper self. To understand the self, let's first look at the ego. The ego is your sense of I, the part of you that says, "I am a student, I am a parent, I like this, I don't like that." The ego helps you navigate the world, make decisions, and maintain a consistent sense of identity. But it's not the whole story. In fact, Jung believed that the ego is just a small island floating on a vast ocean of the unconscious. Beneath the ego lies the personal unconscious, your memories, forgotten experiences, and repressed emotions. And deeper still lies the collective unconscious, a realm that holds universal patterns and symbols shared by all humans. The self lives in this deep space. It is the organizing center of your entire psyche. It holds your full potential, not just who you are now, but who you can become. Unlike the ego, which often clings to control and familiarity, the self is expansive and mysterious. It pulls you toward wholeness, even if that means confronting painful truths. It speaks through dreams, synchronicities, art, and even inner crises. Every time you feel called to grow beyond your current identity, every time something inside you says, "There's more to me than this," that's the voice of the self. Jung often described the self using symbols. In dreams or myths, it might appear as a wise old man, a divine child, a mandala, or a sacred mountain. These symbols represent balance, unity, and inner harmony. They are the psyche's way of showing you the deeper pattern unfolding within. But the path to the self isn't a straight line. Jung emphasized that you must go through the individuation process to reach it. That means confronting your shadow, understanding your inner masculine or feminine, the anima, animus, withdrawing projections, and integrating the many parts of your psyche. As you do this work, the ego shifts from being the ruler of your inner world to being a humble servant of the self. This is a profound psychological shift. Before individuation, you might see yourself as just your job, your beliefs, or your personality traits. But as you integrate more of your unconscious, you begin to sense that your identity is much deeper than any label. You stop needing to prove yourself. You become more accepting of life's contradictions, more open to mystery, and more at peace with not having all the answers. The self is not perfection, it's integration. It's not about eliminating flaws, but about including them in a greater whole. Your darkness doesn't disappear. It becomes part of your strength. Your pain doesn't vanish. It becomes a doorway to wisdom. You don't escape who you are. You finally become who you are. Jung used the image of the mandala, a circular, symmetrical pattern found in many cultures, as a symbol of the self. The mandala represents harmony and centeredness. He believed that when people spontaneously drew or dreamed of mandalas, it was a sign their psyche was moving toward inner unity. When you live in alignment with the self, you begin to feel a quiet confidence, a deeper purpose, and a connection to something greater than yourself. Life doesn't become easier, but it becomes more meaningful. You begin to trust the journey, even when it's difficult, because you sense that something deep within you is guiding the way. Jung wrote, "The self is our life's goal, for it is the completest expression of that fateful combination we call individuality." He saw the self not just as a psychological idea, but as a spiritual one. It connects you not only to your deepest truth, but also to the collective web of human experience. In the end, the self is the home you've always been seeking, not out there, but within. Have you ever experienced a moment that felt too meaningful to be mere coincidence? Perhaps you were thinking deeply about a friend you hadn't contacted in years, only to receive a message from them moments later. Or maybe you stumbled upon a book or a phrase that perfectly answered a question you had been wrestling with inside your mind. Carl Jung called these moments synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem to connect our inner world with external events in a way that defies chance. Jung first noticed synchronicity while working with patients, and during his collaboration with physicist Wolfgang Pauli, he observed that sometimes events would align in a way that was not causally linked, but deeply significant to the person experiencing them. Unlike cause and effect, where one thing leads directly to another, synchronicity involves an acausal connection, a meaningful parallel between the inner and outer worlds. This idea challenges the traditional scientific view that everything happens randomly or by direct cause. Instead, Jung proposed that our unconscious mind might be connected to the world in a mysterious, symbolic way. Synchronicities are like messages from the unconscious or the collective unconscious, guiding us, confirming our intuition, or inviting us to pay attention. Why does this matter for personal growth and psychology? Because synchronicities often appear at moments when we are going through transformation or searching for answers. They can feel like signposts on our individuation journey, the process of becoming whole and authentic. When you are open to these experiences, they can provide comfort, insight, and validation that you are on the right path. For example, a person might dream of a symbol, say a key or a bird, and then unexpectedly see that symbol repeatedly in their waking life. This could be an unconscious invitation to unlock a new part of themselves or to embrace freedom and change. Jung believed that symbols appearing both in the psyche and in the external world create a meaningful pattern, helping us navigate our inner struggles. Synchronicity also connects to Jung's concept of the collective unconscious, the idea that beneath our personal experiences lies a shared reservoir of archetypes and symbols common to all humans. These archetypes can manifest in dreams, myths, art, and synchronistic events. When a synchronistic moment happens, it might be tapping into this deeper shared language of the psyche. But experiencing synchronicity requires a certain openness and awareness. In our busy, distracted lives, we often miss these subtle connections. We may dismiss them as random or coincidence. Jung encouraged cultivating mindfulness and paying attention to dreams, feelings, and unexpected patterns in life as a way to tune into this deeper dialogue. Synchronicity also reminds us that reality is not just mechanical or predictable. There's a layer of meaning and mystery woven through everyday life. This can be deeply comforting, especially during times of uncertainty or crisis. It suggests that there is an intelligence or order at work beneath the surface, guiding us even when things seem chaotic. Importantly, Jung did not see synchronicity as superstition or magical thinking. He framed it as a psychological phenomenon that points to the interconnectedness of mind and matter. It's a bridge between inner experience and outer reality. For those on the path of self-discovery, recognizing synchronicity can deepen your trust in yourself and the universe. It encourages you to listen closely to your intuition and to honor the subtle ways your psyche communicates. It invites you to see your life as a meaningful story unfolding rather than a series of random events. In a world often dominated by logic and control, synchronicity offers a reminder that mystery and meaning are alive and well. It opens the door to wonder and awe, inviting you to participate in the dance of life with greater presence and openness. So next time you experience a striking coincidence, pause and ask, "What is this moment trying to tell me?" You may be hearing the voice of your deeper self, reaching out to guide you on your journey toward wholeness. Carl Jung introduced the idea of the shadow as one of the most essential yet challenging parts of understanding ourselves. The shadow represents the aspects of our personality that we reject, deny, or feel ashamed of, those parts we don't like to show the world or sometimes even admit to ourselves. It's often called the hidden self because it lives in the unconscious, away from our conscious awareness. The shadow isn't just about the bad or dark traits, though that's a common misconception. It contains qualities that might be socially unacceptable, like anger, jealousy, or selfishness, but it can also include positive traits we've denied because of fear, shame, or cultural conditioning, like creativity, strength, or assertiveness. Why do we develop a shadow in the first place? From early childhood, we learn what behaviors are accepted and rewarded, and which are rejected or punished. To fit in, we push certain feelings or impulses out of awareness. For example, a child praised for being nice might hide their anger or competitiveness. A person raised in a strict family might bury their desires for freedom or spontaneity. Over time, these denied parts don't disappear. They go underground and form the shadow. Even though we try to ignore it, the shadow influences us in powerful ways. It can cause emotional outbursts, self-sabotage, or unhealthy patterns in relationships. Sometimes the shadow shows up in projection. We see in others the traits we refuse to see in ourselves. This can lead to judgment, conflict, or misunderstandings. Jung believed that facing and integrating the shadow is vital to becoming whole. Instead of running from it, we need to recognize and accept these hidden parts as part of us. This process takes courage because it forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves. When we embrace the shadow, something remarkable happens. We stop being controlled by unconscious forces because we bring them into the light. We gain greater self-awareness and emotional freedom. We learn to work with our inner contradictions instead of being torn apart by them. This doesn't mean indulging harmful behaviors or ignoring ethics. Rather, it means acknowledging the full spectrum of who we are, including our flaws and vulnerabilities. By doing so, we free up energy and creativity that was trapped in denial and repression. Shadow work can take many forms: reflecting on moments when you felt triggered or angry, journaling about your hidden feelings, exploring dreams that reveal darker themes, or seeking therapy to safely explore your unconscious. The key is to approach the shadow with compassion and curiosity, not judgment. Jung saw shadow integration as a doorway to personal growth and healing. When we accept our shadow, we become more authentic and grounded. We gain resilience because we're no longer split between who we want to be and who we really are. In relationships, understanding your shadow helps you see where projections might be causing conflict. You start to recognize that others' flaws may mirror your own denied traits. This awareness allows for greater empathy and healthier connections. Spiritually, the shadow can be a source of transformation. Many myths and stories depict heroes who must face their dark side or descend into a shadow world to return reborn. Similarly, in our inner life, embracing the shadow is like entering a dark cave, uncomfortable but necessary to emerge into fuller light. Ultimately, Jung taught that you are not broken because of your shadow. You are whole because you have it. The shadow is part of the rich complexity that makes you human. When you learn to live with it, your inner world becomes richer, your emotional life deeper, and your journey toward wholeness more complete. Carl Jung introduced the concept of archetypes as fundamental, universal symbols and themes that live deep within the human unconscious. These archetypes are not learned behaviors or personal memories. They are inherited patterns of thought and feeling shared by all humans across cultures and history. Think of them as the psychic building blocks or blueprints of human experience. Jung believed that archetypes shape how we perceive the world, how we respond to life's challenges, and how we understand ourselves. They appear in myths, fairy tales, religions, and dreams, often personified as figures like the hero, the mother, the wise old man, or the trickster. These figures aren't just characters in stories. They are reflections of inner psychological forces at work in each of us. For example, the hero archetype represents the part of us that seeks courage, adventure, and transformation. The hero's journey, overcoming obstacles, facing fears, and returning changed, is a metaphor for our own growth process. When we identify with this archetype, we feel motivated to push beyond our limits and discover new strengths. The mother archetype embodies nurturing, protection, and creation. It can appear as a caring figure or a symbol of life-giving energy, but it also has a shadow side, overprotectiveness or smothering, showing how archetypes are complex and multidimensional. These archetypes influence our dreams and behaviors in subtle ways. When you dream of a wise old man, it might be your inner guide encouraging you to seek wisdom. When you feel drawn to rebel or challenge authority, the trickster archetype might be active, shaking up old patterns to bring change. Importantly, Jung emphasized that these archetypes are not fixed personalities, but dynamic forces that express differently in each person. Your personal experiences color how an archetype shows up in your life. For one person, the hero might be a firefighter, risking everything to save others. For another, it might be the courage to face emotional wounds and seek therapy. Recognizing archetypes within yourself can deepen self-understanding and help you navigate your inner world. For example, if you notice a strong pull to protect others, you might be connecting with the caregiver archetype. If you feel a need for independence and innovation, the rebel or creator archetype may be active. Archetypes also help explain patterns in relationships. You might find yourself drawn to partners who embody certain archetypal roles, or you might unconsciously play out archetypal dramas, like the hero rescuing the maiden, or the king and the shadow. In Jungian therapy, working with archetypes can be a powerful tool. By identifying which archetypes are dominant or suppressed, you can gain insight into your motivations, fears, and desires. You can also begin to balance archetypal energies within yourself, leading to greater harmony and wholeness. On a larger scale, archetypes connect us to a collective human story. When you engage with archetypal images through art, meditation, or storytelling, you tap into a shared language that transcends individual experience. This can foster a sense of belonging and meaning, reminding you that your journey is part of a timeless human pattern. Understanding archetypes also encourages compassion. When you see that difficult people or situations are expressions of archetypal forces, it's easier to respond with empathy rather than frustration. You realize that beneath surface behavior, universal human themes are playing out. In sum, archetypes are like the roots of your inner life. They shape how you think, feel, and act in ways you may not fully realize. By becoming aware of them, you can harness their energy consciously, guiding your growth and healing. Jung believed that engaging with archetypes brings you closer to the self, the center of your being where all these forces come into balance. They are signposts on your path to wholeness, revealing the richness and complexity of the human psyche. Carl Jung viewed dreams as one of the most direct ways our unconscious communicates with our conscious mind. Unlike Freud, who often saw dreams as expressions of repressed desires, Jung believed dreams carry rich, symbolic messages meant to guide us toward wholeness and self-understanding. He famously said, "Dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. Dreams arise from the unconscious and reflect not just personal experiences, but also universal symbols from the collective unconscious. They speak in a language of images, myths, and archetypes, symbols that don't always make literal sense, but hold deep meaning when interpreted thoughtfully. One of the key purposes of dreams, according to Jung, is to balance the psyche. When the conscious mind is overly rigid, ignoring certain feelings or aspects of the self, dreams bring these neglected parts into awareness. They often reveal conflicts between the ego and the unconscious, offering clues to unresolved emotions or hidden potentials. For example, if you consistently dream of being lost or trapped, it might indicate feelings of confusion or stuckness in waking life. A dream of a wise old figure or a guide may symbolize your inner wisdom trying to emerge. Recurring symbols like water, shadows, or animals often point to unconscious energies or emotional states. Jung developed the practice of dream analysis to decode these messages. He encouraged paying close attention to the emotions in the dream, the symbols present, and how they connect to your waking life. Unlike a fixed dictionary of dream symbols, Jung emphasized personal and cultural context, what a symbol means to you individually, as well as its archetypal significance. Engaging with dreams can deepen your individuation process. They act like a mirror, showing you parts of yourself that you might not yet fully know or accept. This ongoing dialogue with the unconscious helps you integrate your shadow, balance inner opposites, and move closer to the self. Dreams also invite creativity and insight. Many artists, writers, and thinkers have credited dreams with inspiring profound breakthroughs. By opening to the symbolism in dreams, you tap into a wellspring of intuition and imagination. It's important to approach dreams with openness and curiosity, not fear or dismissal. Even nightmares carry important messages, often about fears, trauma, or inner struggles that need healing. Facing these dreams bravely can lead to greater resilience and self-compassion. Practically, keeping a dream journal is a helpful way to start noticing patterns and symbols. Writing down your dreams soon after waking preserves their detail and allows for reflection over time. Discussing dreams with a therapist or in a group can also provide new perspectives. Ultimately, Jung saw dreams as a vital part of the path to wholeness. They connect you to the deeper layers of your psyche, offering guidance, healing, and wisdom. Through dreams, the unconscious reaches out, reminding you that you are not alone in your inner journey. In embracing the messages of your dreams, you take another step toward realizing that you are already whole, complete with light and shadow, known and unknown, conscious and unconscious.